Hello, Mr. Duda. So unfortunately, I just recorded a pretty long um, explanation and presentation on my computer, but we've been having some electrical issues, and I guess my camera is completely messed up, so that's kind of why I'm using this. I do apologize. It's going to be in portrait mode, but this is kind of the best I can kind of come up with right now until I kind of figure out a better solution. So with that being said, this is going to kind of be the presentation for the project. This is an 8-page paper, so I will try to condense it as much as I can. With all that being said, the paper I'm writing about is about the Harry Harlow rhesus monkey experiment. It is a experiment that was conducted on babies, baby rhesus monkeys. From the birth, they were put in a cage with either a mother with cloth and rubber, or they were put in a cage with mom who had like a wire cage as well as some wood. Now, originally, the wire caged mother was the one with the bottle of milk, which provided nourishment for the monkeys, obviously, kind of as a serving, or kind of serving as a purpose of a soothing method whenever they're in distress to kind of go after the milk of the mom, just like they would, normally. And the milk was then taken and given to the cloth mother to kind of simulate the opposite end of that to see if the monkeys would, react the same way or not. So the case study I'll be analyzing and focusing on is a case study about maternal contact and the importance of how it's being used on rhesus monkeys. The case study itself involves using young rhesus monkeys that were all put and raised in a laboratory, keeping some alone to show social isolation, as well as to show the importance of parental figures that provide comfort in stressful situations. The question I'll be posing is it ethical and right to use rhesus monkeys in experiments if it involves them being inhumanely treated for long periods of time for the benefit of understanding psychology in a deeper sense? To introduce the case, or what the case study is about, as well as the importance of it, I'll be providing an analysis of what is done in the Harry Harlow's rhesus monkey experiment, the costs as well as the benefits of the experiment. The study was based on the premise of the importance of maternal contact, something I was already kind of briefly talking about, and also speaking about the mothers, what they were made of, the cloth and then the wood. At the start of the experiment, Harry Harlow discovered two important things. Harlow's work showed that the infants also turned to inanimate surrogate mothers for comfort when they were faced with new and scary situations. Essentially, any external stimuli that was put in the cage with the monkeys and the mother, depending on the mother that the monkeys had, depended on how the monkeys reacted to the stimuli. So, for example, if a monkey was in the cage with the wire caged mom, it would curl up in the fetal position and start sucking its thumb as a self-soothing behavior. And then the monkeys that were with the cloth mother would oftentimes try to attack or provoke the stimuli being put in the cage because they felt more protected with the cloth mother. Um, with this, Harlow discovered that the monkeys provided with a cloth mother would explore the environment, and whenever the monkey would have become startled, it would run back to the cloth mother for comfort. The monkeys with the mother made up of wood, as well as the wire cage, found that the infants were paralyzed with fear, huddled in a ball, sucking their thumbs. And if an alarming noise-making toy was placed in the cage, an infant with the surrogate mother present would explore and attack the toy. Without the surrogate mother, the infant would cower in fear. So we can understand with the basic information that the monkeys provided with the cloth mother felt more safe to engage in risky behavior, such as attacking something that scared them. However, we can see on the flip side of this that monkeys provided with the wire frame mother were scared of the environment and engaged in behaviors of self-soothe, such as getting in the fetal position and sucking their thumbs to provide themselves with comfort. Now I'll explain why this experiment was detrimental to monkeys and start explaining the ethical dilemma posed. The end result of the experiment was disturbing to say the least, because the monkeys were kept in social isolation for different lengths of time, some for 3 months, some for 6 months, and some for up to 9 months. When the monkeys were finally allowed back in the company of others, they showed emotional damage. So when the monkeys that were isolated were put back in the environment with the other monkeys that were not being isolated, they were kind of just being raised like normal. The monkeys that were in isolation were often exiled, kind of bullied, and kept to the side compared to the monkeys that were, that kind of grew up around each other. This oftentimes led to the monkeys who were left in the social isolation. They would start self-mutilating, which is kind of the kind of horror story behind this, experiment. was that they would start ripping off their own fur, chewing at their limbs, kind of doing anything to hurt themselves just because, they didn't know how to react in the socially stimulating environment. So to outline the dilemma, the ethical problem behind this case study by Harry Harlow provided crucial information on the importance of maternal figures during childhood, but is it ethical to subject monkeys to inhumane treatment for months on end, resulting in disturbing behaviors for the benefit of psychological understanding of parents and early childhood development? I provide this as a dilemma because this is a very important research, no doubt about that, but it comes at the cost of treating animals inhumanely and subjecting them to living a life of stress and punishment. So is it right for us to be able to subject animals to horrible lives to provide insight into possible solutions in real life cases of social isolation for children and families rather? This brings us to the next topic at hand. How could it have been changed, or what could have been done differently to see the same results but with less damage to the monkeys? Essentially what I came up with was, instead of putting the monkeys in long-term isolation from 3, 6, or 9-month periods, instead putting them in isolation for 15 to 30-day periods, reintegrating them into a socially stimulating environment, having them, kind of acclimate themselves to the monkeys that were raised together and kind of see how that works. So essentially it's providing some of the same information. It's not going to be the exact same information, but we're kind of looking at the cost, outweighing like the benefits in this scenario. So with the monkeys, could we have, kind of stopped them from self-mutilating and, hurting themselves if we would have provided them with a better environment after, a shorter period of time without kind of exposing them to sitting in a, cage for up to 9 months of their life? So with that, the counter argument I can see with it is that it would not yield the same results due to the fact that they would be put in short-term isolation compared to long-term isolation, with both yielding different results. With long-term isolation, we can study and understand more in depth how social isolation can be negative for the monkeys that were subjected to it, and how it affects them slowly due to this all being a long-term process, showing the slow degradation of the brain when left with little to no stimulation. This also helps us translate this in childhood development, which is the reason why Harry Harlow had actually won prizes due to this research, because although we ourselves are not monkeys, obviously we're close enough to monkeys for us to kind of affect us a little bit of the same way. This also helps translate this into more formative adult years and the adult perspective, because this helps us understand adults that are left in solitary confinement and things like prison, and how this kind of affects them the same way, kind of going back to what I was talking about, the short-term isolation or long-term isolation, depending on how long that person is sitting in solitary confinement. And solitary confinement often results in tragic outcomes, including physical and mental health crises, increased incidence of violence, and high rates of recidivism. So using the research from Harry Harlow, it could help translate into real-world changes into changing things like solitary confinement, because it adds the research development and understanding the negative effects on mental health without having to subject a human to it, even though it's still common practice, but subjecting monkeys to it instead, because they're frankly more expendable. So Harry Harlow raised awareness and helped us understand crucial information regarding childhood development, as well as the importance of social interaction from socialized animals. Harlow was able to show in multiple experiments possible ways for us to treat this collectively, how to handle it properly, as well as what could be changed in the future if this experiment is done again. However, we have to think to ourselves, even though this served a positive purpose and deeper understanding behind the psychology as a whole, is it right for us to subject animals to inhumane conditions and practically torture them for their entire lives solely for the purpose of furthering our understanding of psychology? Again, I do apologize the fact that this is kind of being, I guess, scruffed up a little bit. This is the second or third time I've recorded this. Each have been about 15 minutes long, so I've been doing this for going on about an hour now, so I'm kind of getting a little frustrated with it, but I'm hoping this works. I hope I didn't jump too much kind of all over the paper. You'll see it when you read it. I hope I kind of elaborated a little bit better than how I'm presenting it, but regardless, thank you for watching the video. I appreciate it. I understand it's a little longer, but I kind of talk a lot, but regardless, thank you, appreciate it, and yeah.